Hey there! Welcome to the Web3 Summit Decentralize Now podcast series, hosted by the Decentralize All The Things podcast network. This series features discussions about decentralization from the 2018 Web3 Summit held in Berlin, Germany. This is episode 18. In this episode, we listen in on a community-driven discussion about the importance of inclusivity and community engagement in the tech and blockchain industries. Thanks for tuning in. We hope you enjoy the show.
So, we have an open panel for discussion. Yeah, so the topic is whatever you want it to be, right? I got all sorts of ideas, but who cares? Exactly. This is going to be probably the best talk of the night because it's about whatever we want it to be. Yeah, so I'm curious if anyone wants to volunteer to seed this panel and has anything that they want to discuss. We're talking anything, right?
So I want to toss up the topic of your chatbot, your Matrix chatbot that you're using in the Riot channel, right?
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about like the reasoning behind it? So what purpose does it serve for you guys, and how do you see it help your group in the future?
Wait, Deem, don't go anywhere. Did you hear his... Hey, Deem, did you hear his question? He was asking about the chatbot. Would you be down to sit down for a second? Deem actually made the chatbot. It was originally... The goal was simply to automate the reward DAO system, where we're trying to solve this issue of volunteers. Like, how do volunteers get paid? But we don't want to pay them directly because... we can't pay them enough. That's why we get volunteers. This is a constant problem, right? Volunteer retention and showing appreciation. And so what we did is we created a system where we could dish points, and those points will eventually result in money, but like a month later, maybe a month and a half later, right? And it's really not about paying people as much as it is just saying, wow, we're putting this bounty up for the community, like we're paying the community like an employee. And it's going to be shared amongst people. Who knows how much you're going to get? Know that it's not going to equate to a wage, but it will equate to something, and that we appreciate you pushing the community forward, right? But we were using this Excel spreadsheet, and then Deem heroically stepped up with another guy, Trey, to push this chatbot forward. And it was originally just to create points, but then it became so useful because Riot is this really cool like system where you can use it, and it's open source, and you can like integrate things to it. And so now we're using it to also auto respond when people enter a room to say, "Hey, how's it going?" And ideally, it'll also be used for Giveth one day to help build the community. Right? Because every time someone creates a community to, like, let's say, end homelessness in Berlin, they will be able to, they'll instantly have a Riot room that will have a lot of cool things, a lot of cool infrastructure built in that will say, hey, guess what? Someone just donated to this. Or maybe even one day we'll be able to donate straight through Riot, kind of like you can Status. Right? I mean, there's going to be a lot of potential here, but of course it just starts with just having the bot. And I mean, Deem, I would love to hear what your thoughts are, because this is your baby, right?
Yeah, so the Riot bot is making everything, well, communication right now easier for Giveth, especially when you're joining different rooms. So we have different rooms in the, Giveth community in Riot. And like when you join one room, it will make it a specific message for that room, so you know what's going on in that specific room. So that's one of the use cases of the bot right now. And yeah.
So I remember seeing people or initiatives trying to like use these chatbots also to sort of automate things so that it doesn't only... So now you can say like dish a number of points to that guy or to that avatar. and will do so. Or have you looked, or do you plan to look into like automating stuff like actually doing transactions, for example, on Ethereum through the bots? I know that people have been working on that, but I really haven't checked into any of these projects or initiatives lately. So I was just wondering if you guys are following up on that.
Yeah, so originally I think the idea was to like getting these. So instead of dishing out points, you would dish out tokens. And I guess these would be, at the end of the month, these would be turned into Ether, where you could, call the contract and you will get Ether by the end of the month. So that's what we are, the end goal of the point spot, I think. So yeah, that's on the roadmap at least.
Yeah, I think that's super exciting to see that. I just joined a talk about Riot in the current state of Matrix as a protocol, and yeah, the way that it's just architecture and like the whole power of that community. The amount of clients there are out there, the server implementations in all kind of languages, and I mean they're looking at like scaling that up so that you can have like he was mentioning numbers like. I think it was 6,000 members that can be part of one room and so forth. So like it's super scalable. And he did a demo where they had some sort of a video chat in 3D. So they use like an iPhone. It has like two streams, like one video stream and like one depth stream, and they combine it in some sort of a virtual reality room. And so they demoed it actually it was pretty amazing. So you really had like a 3D representation. And one of the use cases that they use it for is that's sort of the problem is in these traditional video chat applications that everybody's looking down from his camera because you're looking at the face of whoever you're talking to, but it creates some sort of an awkward off edge thing, like people don't appear to be looking at you but looking somewhere else. And with those kind of solutions you can compensate for that, so you can move yourself higher or lower, so the points that you're looking at on your screen actually so it looks like you have eye contact with whoever you're video chatting with. So I mean they're working on all these amazing things, so I think it's very exciting to see how that can be integrated through these bots.
And the thing is, everything like the Matrix protocol and what we are using internally for the bot is like open source, and we got a great documentation on like how to use it. So that's the great thing about open source. So right now the bot has like, so I was the one that, started, the points bot as together with Tay Trey. But then people joined in. So I also, another one that has been integrating the chat feature, Frederik Bolding, is also coming along in this community now. And helping with the bot. So we got this collaboration happening now with the Giveth bot. So it's not only one person, but like it's a whole community trying to make the bot better.
But I want to just say that this all came. We chose Riot for this reason, because it's a really nice open source protocol. A while ago, Slack kind of kicked all the crypto people off. They didn't kick us off, but they were clearly insecure, and they weren't willing to change during the ICO craziness. Like there were clear security holes for our application, and Slack refused to support our use of their application, basically because we weren't paying and we were hacking their software a little bit. You weren't supposed to invite anybody. Slack was made specifically to be controlled, right? Like a controlled space, not an open space. And so there was this big exodus from Slack, and people went everywhere. They went to Discord, they went to Riot, they went to Rocket Chat, and a lot of people just went to Telegram. And now we chose Riot because of all the cool stuff that we saw happening and being pushed forward. It was Status started supporting them, and it just looked like it would be so easy to integrate it into the Ethereum stack as a supporting protocol. And the point spot really, I think, is the exclamation point on saying that we made the right move, and that eventually, because Riot is definitely young and it doesn't have a lot of the features that we want, like unread messages, and these little things. But guess what? You can make a pull request, and in fact, you could hack it in yourself, and that's the kind of shit I like working with. So, Keeley.
Yeah, on this topic in particular, because we at CDM actually completely migrated over from Slack to Riot, particularly because Giveth, y'all were in there, and so we started using it. As far as the adoption curve, it did take a little while to dive into it, understand it, but now we love the layout, love using it, super excited about it. Really, the only feature that I would like to see added is like being able to put the emojis on messages. You can reply to them, but a particular challenge we've seen is in getting people that are not, haven't used it, but use Slack, is getting them onboarded into it. And so I was wondering if anyone had any strategies or tips for getting people that maybe aren't necessarily in blockchain or crypto, or maybe are a little reluctant to try something new, to figure out how to use Riot.
Yeah, well, the very easy thing that, I don't know, I missed the beginning of the conversation, but the very easy thing that we do that helps is that we have bridged all our channels between Slack and Riot. So people still, because many people know Slack and they have it on their computer for work purposes for other Slack channels they are in, and then they come and give it, they might choose Slack first, but they see very quickly that we are not on Slack. If they want to talk to us, they have to come to Riot, and they see that the way how we put our hyperlinks, etc., because we just use Markdown, they see that we're not in Slack. And so if they want to have the full experience, it's better for them to come to Riot. So we promote all the time, telling them hey, the Give It unicorns, that's us, are actually in Riot, so come and join us. So they get the bot helps for that as well, because with the bot the great bot that Deem created, which is now our Give It bot, our welcoming bot, we send them direct messages and we let them know this is how Riot works, and this really helps for people to understand how easy it is, and that is something that was missing. Like, how do you do the basic things? One of you mentioned liking and putting emojis on messages, reactions. Another thing that I really got very distracted by is that all the different rooms are pinging all the time. They're giving notifications. So not only the ones that you were tagged in, and I didn't understand in the beginning, okay, get all messages loud, noisy. There's one of these settings, and so the bot now just sends a message, hey, just if you want to be notified once in a while, put all your rooms on mention only. It's a simple thing that helps people oh, this is how it works. Hey, and this is the community with all the rooms. And that's another way that gets them in and facilitates it for them. And that's all possible because it's open source, and that we just hooked our robot in there, and it was welcoming everyone, sending them public messages, sending them direct messages based on the topic of the room they're in. So it's I'm a huge fan. I think Griff can confirm that I was the person that was most against Riot in the beginning. I was really blocking it, and now I'm the biggest fan because it's possible to add these things. I never open Slack anymore. So yeah.
What I also learned from a talk earlier is that apparently, so they have some sort of an identity server or identity part in the protocol where you actually create your accounts to participate on the Matrix protocol, sort of. And apparently they're also modularizing that so that you could maybe even join using the Ethereum address later on or something. You don't have to subscribe anymore or create an account, but you can just say this is my identity module for my group, and you could just very easily onboard. So if you are subscribed to I don't know, or maybe you've created an account in a dApp already, then maybe you can just use those, I would say credentials, but in that it's not a credential anymore. Then you just proof this is my address, and then you automatically get added to the group, or you can use it to authenticate yourself. And also they have apparently a new version coming out now for their web clients. So the Riot's web version. So we showed a demo from that, and Looks pretty swell.
And they're working on a new design, right? The feet overhaul.
Oh yeah, so that was one of the thing they showed a preview from. It's not released yet, but it looks pretty good. Yeah.
No, I just wanted to say, if you're interested about like how this works, like how we did it with the bot. So we have a post. So if you go to medium.com/giveit, there's a post that explains how and why we created the bot and what it all does with links to the repo and how we can integrate it.
Awesome. So to shift gears a little bit and thinking about decentralization, we need to have everyone be included in the process and those decisions. And so something that I haven't really seen talked a lot about at this conference in particular is thinking about like how do we get the most wide variety of perspectives and users into the process. So in thinking of like along the lines of diversity and inclusion, I think if we could talk about maybe where we have strengths in the blockchain and crypto space, but also where we could have improvements. So I think from like a global perspective, there's a lot of nationalities represented, a lot of different languages spoken. But what I haven't seen much of, I guess, is from an accessibility standpoint. How are we designing products to service people that are maybe blind, hard of hearing, less mobile? Also in thinking of like gender equality and bringing more women and non-binary folks into the mix, and then also, people of color, people of different races. How do we, as a community, make sure that we're getting everyone included so that we can really have, decentralization that is inclusive of, all the beautiful humans in this world.
Just a quick thing. Just before we were going to pick a topic, and then I thought of an idea. Then Griff said, "Oh yeah, you've got an idea." And that was exactly what I was going to say around inclusiveness and just accessibility and like, but maybe in two different dimensions. But yeah, maybe we'll start with your one. So, who has a point on that?
I don't know if you did, but it's a very good point, and it's like we were watching people getting off the tram yesterday, going to the conference. I was like, okay, it's all guys, so this must be the conference. These are all developers. So I think in general that in the blockchain community there's still a lot of work in that sense, if you want to put it like that. But I think personally that it's gonna come gradually. What I do love a lot about this entire community is that it's in its attitude extremely open and embracing. And it's not just the technology, but it's always like, technology comes in language, comes in culture and all these things. And I have, to be honest, never in my life felt more included in a community than here. I was writing a little bit on the values of Giveth. And to me, vulnerability is one of the most important ones, that you can dare to be yourself. And I feel that this is possible here because there's no hierarchy. So there's not ego is actually when people have their egos coming up too much, it's not really appreciated. And it's like, you have to just work and get the things done. And if you don't, I've struggled it with myself personally, like some points in projects coming in with too much ego because I was insecure and I wanted to prove myself. But very soon you realize that's not how this is going to roll here. You just have to just be you, and that's enough. And bring your value. And having this attitude is going to attract more people. And I think that's how communities often work. You show them what you stand for. So I would say, in short, or my answer would be like, focusing a little bit on these values of the community is going to show to other people, hey, I align with these values. I want to know more about this. Maybe I don't know the technology, but I get what they stand for. I believe in what they stand for. So yes, and that will attract people. It attracted me, and it attracts people I know. So yeah.
Yeah, as far as like how do we include other people with other ideas and like it's a really tough problem to solve. Have any of you ever used WeChat?
Yeah.
Dude, I don't get it. WeChat doesn't make any sense to me. And there's like a famous story of the CEO of Reddit who married Serena Williams, and she goes on Reddit and she doesn't have a fucking clue. It doesn't make sense. The interface makes no sense. And I feel like blockchain has kind of set itself up to be like Reddit, where it's made for, like young white guys, right? And so that in a lot of ways that's good. Just like WeChat is designed for Chinese people who eyes naturally go a certain direction. They are used to using certain applications in a certain ways, and they're trained already. So it kind of becomes this self-fulfilling prophecy, or the snake eating itself. I don't know what analogy is right there, but it's one of these things where the design so far for blockchain has not been inclusive. It's been focused on its current user base, and it's time to grow, right? And this points to a general problem with crypto, which is the user experience sucks, even for white dudes, right? It sucks for everyone. So I think that it's one of these things where it takes time. It takes for the opportunity for diversity to come into the space. We need a huge influx of UX designers. I'm actually trying to interview UX designers every day, almost, to bring them in for various positions, and they know that I think they know that it's going to be more inclusive, and it will happen naturally when the user base grows. I think there's only, like, if you look at the apps that are in the dApps on Ethereum, there's less than 10,000 daily users. I mean, that's pretty pathetic. So it's I don't know. I don't know what the answer is, but at least that's some status.
And I think that not only does it take time and opportunity, those are like both passive things, right? But it takes like actively reaching out. Like, we can't just be like, sit back and be like, yeah, let them come. They're not going to come if it's not a space for them. So how do we reach out to that? And like, who was your friend that we met with outside of Jordy's that like bought the DevCon ticket, who's doing the stuff in Mexico? Rafa was talking some really amazing stuff about like how to like make crypto loan apps like accessible to poor Mexican people. Like what type of interface really makes them want to use it and makes it easier for them than going to the payday loans place down the block. And I think just it takes like each and every one of us calling on like, what are the exploited communities that we're connected to, that we have like a personal understanding of what it is they need, so that we can represent that in this space. Like for me, like I'm connected with a lot of anti-racism activists in Seattle that are like poor people of color activists that need things that nonprofits can't provide them. So like I kind of bring that to where I am, but I have to constantly like speak up about it and kind of yell, because it's like there's this thing in these crypto organizations where it's like, no, let's just get our idea out there, and like there's so much work to do on executing our mission, but we have to still take time to remember like, hey, what is the piece that I carry of the rest of the world that I can bring into this, even if you need to slow down on some other elements in order to listen to that.
Just on the two elements of inclusion. One is in the community, like the developer community. In Sydney, I run an IoT meetup, and similar to the blockchain space or tech space in general, it's a majority men, very few women. And each month when I meet up, I'm thinking, what can I do about this? And then I just had to approach the women who came, and I said, look, what can I do to make this better? It's listening and taking action. And that's perhaps the same for the product level as well. It's about asking, what problem are you solving, who are you solving it for, and hearing it from their point of view. But to take the practical example of the guys in the IoT space, and then asking them what they want. Some of it was around just having a welcoming thing, that when people come in, have a bit of an introduction round. So once people have come in, everyone sort of says their name, says what they're doing, and that just puts sort of some like a bit of comfort to know that there's someone has a name. Oh, they're interested in what I want to ask them about. Makes them more approachable. And also there was some statistics in groups of women, groups of people in a room. If there's one or two women, it's quite difficult. But once you get 3 or 4, it's suddenly more comfortable. And I probably should ask that as a question rather than say that's a fact. But in general, there are some things around there. So I'm very mindful of numbers and just trying to see what can I do to actively bring people in. Same with recruitment. I needed to get a designer for this game I was trying to work on. And so I reached out to the community and explicitly said at the front, right now we already have 3 guys in the company. We would like to hire for women first. So, women to the front of the queue, please. And then you get people that will criticize that choice to put that so up front. But on the other hand, I think it's only right because that's the population, and people should be more aware of it and check their sort of biases at the door.
So we're talking a lot from the side of how do you approach people to get into this space. I think one of the other ways to do it, if you're a little bit more like an introvert maybe, and you're not like a kind of guy that goes out there, is to actually very, very clearly shape your story, right? Like, what do you want to see in the world? What kind of change do you want to see? What is it that you want to build or to organize for? And I think the more clear and the smaller you make that story, and maybe even the more radical you make that story, the more easily it is for people to actually say, like, yeah, that's something I want to be part of, or that I like, or no, I hate that. I really don't like that. So I think we should also put like a big effort in how we express what we actually want to build or want to see in the world. I think a lot of times, especially in this space, we keep it very broad and very general in the hope that we attract as many people as possible. Well, actually, I think you stand like a better chance if you make it very small, the story, kind of radical, so people can bounce off or join the thing. That's just like maybe a different approach into attracting people to a specific cause.
And I'd definitely be curious if anyone knows of any resources or groups that are focusing on this issue, and I can offer a few. So on Telegram, there's a group called Crypto Queers to get LGBTQ people connected, share opportunities. And then for CEDM, after our next charity is Slave Free Trade, but after that, we're partnering with Women of Color in Blockchain, which is really trying to bring more women of color into the blockchain space. So I'm curious if anyone else has any groups like that or initiatives that they've heard of.
Yeah, do you know of blockchain for women groups that already exist? Because there should be some, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's a large group called Women in Blockchain that I haven't contacted or talked to, but I've been around on their website. Kile and I are also kind of starting a project to just formulate these questions. We've noticed there's these common resistances that people have to blockchain, especially people who are oppressed folks. They're poor, or they're people of color, or they are just really not technologically involved. And we've been noticing we've been having kind of redundant conversations. People have the same fears about coming towards this. And so we're kind of starting a project to answer those questions in one force. It might start as like a frequently asked questions page and move into maybe like a webinar or a skit would be really fun. But yeah, if anyone has experience with those kind of resistances, like a super common one, when I talk to like environmental activists, they're always like, yeah, but blockchain is not a great solution because look at how much energy it takes. I mean, it's worse, so like, we encountered this again and again and again. It's like, let's have a unified force on how to like educate people around this. Yeah, I don't really know of other projects at the moment.
Isn't Crypto Chicks is also a group, right? They have Crypto Chick meetups, and there's like and Crypto Girls. I think there's at least 2 or 3 different ones that are out there right now. So that's another one. Crypto Vixens, right? So that's another one. So I think the initiatives are popping up, and that's how it goes, right? You have like now more and more people are coming into the space, and first you have this core group, and then it grows and grows, and like you get the diversity comes in a way, and then it's good to nurture that. So like starting all these initiatives.
And I guess this like it isn't the first time we're sort of started an industry that started quite skewed in this sense. So the tech industry in general, this is a bit of deja vu in that regard with regards to the not so much discrimination, but not as much inclusion. And the same thing goes in terms of language. There's a meetup group in Sydney around men championing change for women, which is around, okay, yes, there's maybe an imbalance in an industry, but what is it that men can do? And there's often women speakers saying, hey, these things would be helpful. And one of the things I picked up from that meetup was the language of a job application, for example, or maybe a language of a report. If you're saying, we're looking for code warriors or we're looking for code ninjas, that generally has a skew that is more appealing to men than women, more generally. Again, probably not all cases. And there's probably like some more resources on that I wouldn't know about. But there's little subtle things in terms of our language and are we sort of all high-fiving in a way that's somehow exclusive? Exclusive. I don't know. Like the flip side would be that we have too many nuances that we have to be mindful of, then suddenly we lose our rhythm. But it's a matter of just flowing fairly and inclusively.
Yeah, I think an important thing when you remind me of the fact like there's a lot of nuances that you have to think about and so on. Yeah, I've been. The thing is, I don't believe at all in being politically correct, and I think most of us are not in the sense that we're too awake to be that. But at the same time, I think this vulnerability is important. So, giving the example of there was a very nice guy who recently joined our riot, and he was very apologetic almost that he joined us, and we said, yeah, just introduce yourself. You want to do something? Tell us what you're capable of. And he just opened up. He felt welcome, and he told his story that I think he had suffered a depression. I'm not mentioning any names; it doesn't matter. And he was out of a job right now, but he told also his background and why he believes in what we do, etc. And now he's working on 4 or 5 different projects within and linked to Giveth. And to me, that's so beautiful. Like if you give the people, if you show them this is a safe place, then they can be who they want to be, whoever or whatever that is. And I think Giveth is a great example of such a safe environment. And I think more and more of such groups are going to come. To me, it's one of our core goals to actually provide that to people. Like, hey, you're safe here. Be crazy. And that's also a beautiful thing of blockchain in general. I think that people just can be anonymous and they can take another name. They're never forced to come to meetings, to dress up, they can be whoever they invent. And we have had people in meetings who never put on, because we do mostly video calls, who never put on their camera, and that's fine. They don't have to. They can be completely anonymous, and that's fine. Just be yourself, be comfortable, and I think that's already a very important part of being inclusive, and that attracts people by itself, I would say.
Oh, well, I was actually going to start to do that because the other element around inclusion, apart from the community, was around the applications. So if we have an app that is maybe has a certain UI, maybe around visibility, but maybe about accessibility, I think you mentioned as well. I was thinking earlier we had a conversation on reputation, and I guess we covered around skills on certain dimensions. So if one of the things that to access a sporting facility, you needed a health rate above a certain amount, does this data and these measurements of skill become kind of exclusive? Do we start to, for people with disabilities or maybe learning disabilities who can't level up as quick, are they left behind? And what ways do we have to sort of level the playing field for people with disabilities in being able to get the most out of applications? So it's just a passing thought that if we suddenly all go on sort of like the Black Mirror episode Nosedive, and where everyone's just rating each other and everyone's getting scores, it sounds great, but I wonder, is there a flip side that's not so great, where if you just can't keep up, if you're not as good for whatever natural reasons, are you left behind? Are you left not accessing things? That's just a thought on that topic. I guess blockchain applications may come into it because they may take it to that dimension where our identity doesn't exist anymore. We're not a person with a disability. We're just a person who just doesn't level up as quick as anyone else. And is that good or bad? Like, we can't see if someone is lazy or if they just genuinely can't level up on that skill. Just a thought. on that?
I think, if I get your thought, that I think at this point, inclusivity in this space, for me, is not an issue just yet, because we're still small. Not in that sense. Like when you think about disabled people, blind people, or people who indeed that you would say like they don't get the complexity. I don't get the complexity. None of us do, because it's way too complex, all of it, to really understand the vastness of it. But I think when this scales, when more and more people join, the end applications for people are going to be just as accessible as the ones you have right now. It's just going to be another app on your phone, so to say. So Swarm City is, for example, a perfect example. It's super simple. It's just like you do, there's not a lot you can do. It's just like you send something and you receive something and you ask something and you answer something. But this is also built in that way for that reason. And that is good design, that it, for the end user, it stays very easy to access. And I think in the end, all the winning applications are going to evolve in that way, and that makes them by default inclusive. But at this point, it's still you could call it, to put it negatively, could call it, it's an elite that's working in this. Maybe a more like, the technical elite that is working in it. But that's because there needs to be focus right now. And then when this core has built out the things, then it scales, and then I think there will be a place for everyone to join, I would say.
Yeah, I agree to a certain extent, but we have to make sure that we don't look at ourselves as the people using it, and that's always a bit of a what do you mean, testing? Yeah, of course you have to test what you do, and it's what we try to do with Swarm City, like do enough tests to get feedback and to change. But most and for all, when you start designing your app, like have someone average in mind and not some of our own. Because I think that might be a mistake. People just look at themselves and think that what they know is the standard, but it's not. And if you try to, that's what we always say, like try to design for your mom. If your mom can use it, then probably a lot of people can use it. Okay, maybe a mom is, take a grandmom, right? I mean, take your grandmother. If she's able to do it, then anyone will be able to do it. And then it's like what you say, like more inclusive by design. So I think that's a very important way to start looking at building apps. Like make it simple, make it very, very, basically very simple, almost foolproof, and avoid things like having to use MetaMask to do something in your app. I see that a lot with apps that you have to have MetaMask. Yeah, well, okay, you lose like 95% of your audience by that time. If you say now you have to install MetaMask, yeah, no, okay, forget it. So try to avoid that, and yeah, I think that these are small things to keep in mind all the time when you're building an app. So in that way, it will enhance the getting people on board.
I guess I don't have too much to add on that topic, but to try recircle that focus on, say, the skill attributes. That's why I'm going to sort of Swarm City in a way, that if we are leveling up on our maybe skill in, I'm trying to think what's an example. Maybe making is another example I use. So if someone's leveling up their skill in woodwork, and they can level up because they have the ability, they have the fingers to do it. But someone who does still want to build woodwork, but maybe they have a problem with their hands, arthritis, but that's their career. That's what they've done all the time. Now they're trying to grind up their level and do it. They can't do it as fast as someone who is maybe naturally more skilled, learns quicker, has all their fingers. I don't know. I'm just giving some examples here. Is there a way that we should or could, and how could that be in a decentralized way, level the playing field? To say, look, here is someone who is a human being with abilities. Unfortunately, their abilities aren't as capable off the bat as someone else's. Like, should there be some system to say, hey, this person needs a step up, this needs a boost? I don't know. I think it's something you have. When there is a demand, someone is gonna build it at some point. So if there is this, if something is too complex, for example, for someone,
someone will build a solution that that is easier to access for some other people. To give something that now came to mind was like, I do not know anything about coding, but just before this, you guys held a coding session. And Lorelei was learning, I think, crypto zombies right now. And I'm like, wow, but Lorelei cannot code, and neither can I, but maybe then I could do it too. And I'm super stupid when it comes to that stuff, you know? So I think I want to learn it, and then something like crypto zombies came up, and I don't have to like just immediately go into like deep code. So I think, it will come when the demand is there.
I think I saw a stat that like there's like one blockchain developer for every 14 blockchain development jobs. And then thinking of like creating access for people, like educational access, there's an organization called Blockchain for Social Justice. Because I'm thinking like we do need to start building the just talent pipeline. We need more blockchain developers to fill the need. And so we got to figure out ways to get the education to, you know, a wider audience and teach them development skills. And even if they don't go into, you know, a development job, they will potentially be end users of a product that is using blockchain. So even just teaching them the high level values from the start is also like a good way. So we have to always remember, like, you know, we're educating ourselves, we're building products, but we also have to be making sure that we're taking time out to, you know, make sure that people that are not in this space have access to the tools and resources to be able to get into it in the first place.
I wanted to come back to what you were saying before about someone with the woodworks and everything. Is it what you're saying? Is it basically like, okay, if we have marketplaces, will only the best people thrive, and will basically only a top layer of people be benefiting from it? And is there a lot of people that are like kind of not coming to that level and being left out? Is that like the worry you might have? Well, I think like if we look at the world nowadays, how it's solved, like a lot of things are like government subsidized or stuff like that. And it's a true question, like how, if like imagine a whole ecosystem just running on blockchain applications, open marketplaces, that how we envision it, like what are we going to do then? Is that, I think like every person has something that makes him or her special, or and it's a matter of knowing your own value. But I think for some people it's very hard. And what we see now is that a government has taken over the role of helping out people. And that's why I think some people just don't help each other out anymore, because they have the idea like, well, government takes care of like disabled people. Oh, government takes care of people that are not very, you know, good in society. And people just gave up on helping each other one-to-one. And I hope, or I believe, that if you just imagine for a second there's no government, that people will start helping out each other again. And say, for example, someone you just feel for each other, right? You have something like, okay, I know you might not be the best one, but I'll help you. I'll take you on and we'll do it together. Something like that might pop up and become more natural again, and not as much as centralized central organized as it is right now.
It's like we've outsourced compassion and said, oh great, we don't need to worry about it now. We pay taxes. That's where compassion is handled. But yeah, bringing it back to the community could be quite interesting. And touching to another point that I find in this space, we are all very aligned. We've all got these ideals, and we believe that society will just do the right thing at some point in time. And as much as I like to keep that optimism, I do think there are people who will be like, well, it's not my problem, and then they'll let the person fall between the cracks and not help them up. But maybe they're the rare, maybe they're the absolute minority, and they won't get the swarm city tokens on compassion. So I'll be racking up my compassion tokens. You know.
Yeah. Well, I think it's not going to be like a small minority. I think there's a lot of people that think about themselves first, but I see there's a lot of people that do the compassionate thing. So there is enough people that do that and share. And if you have reputation, and that's a good thing. Once you can value that thing, like with reputation or whatever, it's something that doesn't happen right now. Not you know, like in this world right now, money is basically giving you reputation. So if you make a lot of money, you kind of you're high up the ladder. But doing social good or like being good to other people, it just doesn't give you much reputation. It kind of stays in the area of you do some good, right? But if you value that more, then people will be attracted to doing that more. And if you can benefit from it, if you got a good reputation on that, and you can get stuff for free because they know, like, oh, you help around a lot here in this neighborhood or whatever, and you can get everything you want for free, then it's an incentive to do that. And we should step up on that kind of reputation, or like that currency, basically, on doing good for each other.
Oh, just a quick point it reminded me of. In India, if someone around a family or whatever is doing well for themselves, even if they did it well genuinely, if they're that far wealthier than the people around them, they still will look at them with question. They'll wonder, how did they get so rich and everyone around them still remain poor? It's almost like they'll identify that as a problem, that someone is standing out so much wealthier than those around them, because there's almost this expectation that you're helping people around you. So if you've gone ahead so far and you've left your family behind, something's very wrong. That was, we've got to bring that back to Western culture.
Yeah, and I think in that sense, I do believe it's when I discovered blockchain, it gave me hope. I do believe that there is another world possible. I am 100% sure that a better world than the current world is possible. And so many people, when you talk about blockchain, they're like, they see the dangers, and that's because they start from this mentality of fear. Because what if you change this, and what about the government, and how is this gonna? And it's like, but are you happy with the current system? No. Well, let's maybe try to make it a little bit better. Let's try something else. And I think that is possible when you think about this mentality of scarcity versus abundance. It's another concept we often talk about in Giveth. If you think about, I'm not gonna go all about in these these more anarchist principles, because that would probably lead us too far. But I do believe and grasp the concept of if you have a new technology that divides power in a different way, and that's definitely what's going to happen with blockchain, then you will create opportunities for people who, for the moment, do not have these opportunities. And if now all the wealth of the world is in the hands of less than 1% of the world population, imagine a future world where you talked about, like which you have already in a family, where when there is this inequality and it feels wrong. Imagine that we live in a world that is more of a community and people have more of an abundance mindset, because there is more to go around and people can more follow what they really want to do. Then they might have some space in their life to also care for other people and to do a little bit more good in the world, because there will be time and there will be some abundance to go around. And I'm not able to express it well, but to me this is something that gives me hope, and that I do think that blockchain could possibly change. It's not for tomorrow, but it's why talking about inclusivity and so on, that I do not mind that right now it's a bit exclusive, but it's because of a lot of people in this space also believe this. There are a lot of kindred spirits who are in this not for the money. I think almost everyone, because there are quite some people who do really not need to work if they can retire right now, but they're doing it because they have values and beliefs that they really want to bring this change to the world. So
yeah, along that lines, an example, I know a blockchain developer that built a product. If you're familiar with DocuSign, he built BlockUSign just for the sake of having a product that people could use that's like a secure way to sign documents. And he could make a lot of money from it, but he's just providing it for free. And so I think, I also have a lot of hope that the world will get better, because, people, kindred spirits, people that have shared philosophies but different backgrounds are working on solving these problems for the sake of having a better world. And back to your point, there are people that are actively compassionate. There are people that are kind of just like don't care if people fall through the cracks. But I also think we got to be cognizant that there's also folks that are trying to push people further into the cracks, which is something like even just for me this week. I see news that in the U.S. Decision from the White House to try to erase trans people altogether. Mm-hmm. It's like, okay, that to me, for me, takes my is very distracting, and is like, okay, do I now have to take time to be calling politicians, to be just doing the typical non-blockchain stuff of fighting that? Do I shift gears to say maybe there's some way blockchain can solve for that, or do I just stay the course and say, okay, someone else is going to work on it, it sucks, and I still want to build the products that I'm working on? So there's always like a balance of values and allocating time, and like you said, abundance and scarcity, that really makes me think of that as well.
And I think we were actually just talking in the break. I was talking to a friend of mine, and we talked about, like, she was thinking about a topic that really fascinates her, and it's non-blockchain. And she was thinking, like, maybe I should move in that direction because we all have all these life choices to make. But to me, and talking about this example of politics or wanting to change something in the default world, like we sometimes call it, it's something you could do. But what I do believe is what is happening here in this space is changing things on a very deep, essential level that can have a ripple effect on all these things, on politics, on economics, on really all areas and all parts of society. That it feels like when you're in this, that to me, that you want to stay because I do believe that it could make an essential difference in the long run, that will have more and a bigger impact than just now indeed going into politics or eradicating world hunger or whatever, but really trying to change the system, because the system that we currently have is broken. So, and that's the inspiring thing.
Oh, I just wanted to say that I think it's much more positive energy to be building something new and in opposed to fighting something you don't like. So I would say to everyone, like, just like put all your energy in building something, create something you like instead of the other thing.
Yes, yes.
Thanks for listening. If you haven't already, please subscribe and give us a rating or comment if you enjoyed this content. This episode was brought to you by Santa and the unicorns at giveth.io. Remember, this podcast is made possible by the donations we receive from listeners like you. If you'd like to help support the podcast, you can do so by donating Ether at dattpodcast.com. That's DATT podcast.com. Please check the show notes for more information. Thanks again for listening, and until next time, keep decentralizing all the things.